hopeless. Jesus Christ, that's where hope is.
Today I wanted to deal with the duplicity of the secular pro-life establishment between the organizations, the legislators, and the lawyers that defend their bills, and the way they talk to people differently, showing their motives depending upon the audience that they're speaking to. The example that I want to use today is a bill from Texas from 2016, and it's SB8. This was a dismemberment ban. What Texas Right to Life was saying, especially during the time that it was brought to court and argued against by a couple of pro-choice groups, as well as Whole Women's Health and some other abortion industry companies. But what Texas Right to Life was saying during this time was, with the strong amendments added to SB8, lives of the preborn will be saved in Texas, and Texas will move forward in undermining the legal foundation of Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court decision that legalized abortion in the United States. As they talk about this bill, they use words like less gruesome, it is less torturous, and more humane methods should be used. Now, this bill was to prohibit D&E abortions. Now, this is the transcript from the hearing on request for temporary restraining order. Darren McCarthy, who is a pro-life lawyer for the Texas Attorney General's office, was defending SB8. And this is part of the transcript. Good morning, Your Honor. Darren McCarthy for the Attorney General. Unlike plaintiffs had indicated, SB8 is not a ban on D&E. SB8 is a measured piece of legislation that does not require, nor is it intended to create a substantial obstacle to second trimester abortion. In fact, the plaintiffs, despite submitting evidence, despite waiting to file their case until later, have not presented any evidence in the record that SB8 would bar one single woman in Texas from receiving an abortion. Not one. So we see that in defending this pro-life legislation, that the pro-life Attorney General's office admits that this law will not bar one single woman in Texas from receiving an abortion. That it is not designed to create an obstacle for a woman who has a right to an abortion. But yet, the pro-life movement still says that lives of the preborn will be saved. Which is interesting because this pro-life Attorney General office attorney continues in court by saying this: SB8 is designed to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to end this particularly brutal, gruesome, and inhumane practice of killing a second trimester, essentially fully formed fetus, by tearing it apart limb from limb. Texas has decided that these unborn children are entitled to more dignity. SB8 reflects the ethos of a humane and civilized society. SB8 would require one thing: a human termination of an unborn child's life before it is dismembered and evacuated. That's all it does. What he is saying here, as this part of the legislation does not stop any killings whatsoever. In fact, this pro-life piece of legislation does not even stop the dismembering of the preborn person. So you can still kill this preborn child. You can even dismember this preborn child. As long as you kill the preborn child first, then you can dismember them. He goes on to say this: there is no doubt that D&E of a living infant in the womb is gruesome. It is brutal, and it is inhumane. The state has a legitimate interest. It has passed a marginal, moderate remedy that simply asks the plaintiffs to do what they are already doing by their own admission in many cases, and that is inducing fetal demise prior to the dismemberment of the child and the evacuation from the uterus. Now, the secular pro-life movement was very proud of the success of this. They were happy about this dismemberment bill. And they were telling the constituents, they were telling the people that this would lower abortions in Texas, and that it would undermine the legality of Roe versus Wade. But what we saw here, as the pro-life lawyers were arguing this in court, they say that it would not stop one single abortion. That even the pro-choice, the pro-abortion companies couldn't provide any evidence that this piece of legislation has denied anyone an abortion. It doesn't even stop them from dismembering children, as long as they kill the children before they rip them apart limb from limb. And it's very interesting that they use words like more gruesome, as if ripping a dead baby apart is any less gruesome than ripping a live baby apart. You end up with a dead baby that is torn apart, and no abortions are stopped by their own admission. I hope this video was helpful